When people talk about betrayal, they usually picture something dramatic: a secret lover, a heated argument, a broken promise echoing down the hallway. But betrayal doesn't always arrive in shouting or tears. Sometimes it comes in the form of a spreadsheet. It started with a misplaced decimal, or at least that's what I thought. A single transaction that didn't add up, a few $1,000s missing from a donation fund I'd personally managed. I still remember the afternoon vividly: the hum of the old office air conditioner, the faint scent of stale coffee, the sound of my keyboard as I double-checked numbers that shouldn't have been wrong. I sat there, staring at the column of figures until my eyes blurred, convinced I'd made a mistake. But I hadn't, and that realization, that quiet, devastating click of truth, would change everything. My name is Alara Quinn, and for nearly 5 years, I co-ran the Haven Reach Foundation, a small nonprofit dedicated to helping survivors of domestic abuse rebuild their lives. It was my heart project, born from the ashes of my own experiences, grown with the help of a man I thought shared my vision, Dr. Adrian Vale. When we met, Adrian was already something of a public figure: charming, charismatic, the kind of man who made headlines for his philanthropy and was often photographed handing oversized checks to smiling families. I was the quiet one behind the scenes, organizing fundraisers, managing donations, ensuring the money went exactly where it was promised. We were partners, professionally of course, though I'd be lying if I said the line between admiration and affection hadn't blurred for me once or twice. Adrian had that way about him. He could make you feel seen, heard, important. His presence filled every room. His approval was addictive. Maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. The first red flag was subtle: a $15,000 vendor payment listed under Community Outreach, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. I assumed it was an event supplier, maybe a catering deposit. But when I asked our accountant, Noelle, she frowned. "I didn't authorize this," she said, scrolling through the report. "Looks like Adrian handled it personally." "Maybe it's for the upcoming gala," I suggested. Noelle hesitated. "The vendor name is C. Dallin Consulting. Never heard of them." I shrugged it off, but something about the uncertainty stuck with me. That night, long after everyone had gone home, I logged into our donor management portal again. The more I looked, the more inconsistencies I found. Small amounts at first: $2,000 here, $3,500 there, all labeled as vendor payments or outreach stipends, and every single one linked to the same routing number. I copied it down, staring at it like it might reveal something if I just looked long enough. The next morning, I called the bank, pretending to be verifying information for audit compliance. When they confirmed the account name, my stomach dropped so fast it felt like the floor had disappeared. Account holder? Clarissa Dallin. The name didn't ring a bell, not professionally at least, but something about it scratched at the back of my memory. It wasn't until later that week, during one of Adrian's donor luncheons, that it clicked. She was there, sitting near the back, laughing softly at something Adrian said, her hand brushing his sleeve in a way that was just a little too familiar. She was young, mid-20s maybe, with perfect curls, a designer dress, and an expression that screamed, "I know exactly what I'm doing." Adrian introduced her as a consultant helping expand our outreach program. But there was no outreach program, not one I hadn't personally approved. I didn't sleep that night. I went through every account, every expense, every receipt from the past 6 months. The pattern was clear and sickening. Adrian had been funneling donations through fake project accounts, redirecting them to Clarissa's name under various consulting and training fees, nearly $200,000 in total. That money was supposed to go toward building transitional housing for women escaping abuse. Instead, it was funding his affair. The next morning, I sat across from him in the office conference room. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching the gold cufflinks on his sleeves. He looked so calm, so unbothered. "Adrian," I began carefully, "I was reviewing some financials last night. There's a series of payments to a C. Dallin Consulting. Can you explain what those are for?" He didn't even flinch. Yes, Clarissa's been assisting with community engagement initiatives. It's all legitimate. Right, I said slowly. Except there are no records of those initiatives. He smiled, that condescending kind of smile men in power perfect. Ilara, you've always been brilliant at the administrative side of things, but I think sometimes you get too caught up in the details. This is about vision. Vision? I echoed. You mean theft? That wiped the smirk from his face. Careful, Ilara. Words like that can be dangerous. So can stealing from survivors. His eyes darkened. You think anyone will believe you? I built this foundation's reputation. I'm the face. You're just the back office girl who files the receipts. That cut deeper than I wanted to admit, because in some ways he was right. He was the face, the charming philanthropist, the man donors adored. Exposing him meant risking everything, the foundation, the programs, the beneficiaries who depended on us. But keeping quiet meant becoming complicit. I told him I'd think about it. Then I went home and thought about it all night. And by morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him again. I wasn't going to shout or argue or let him manipulate me into silence. I was going to destroy him the same way he'd built himself up, publicly, meticulously, and without mercy. It started with an anonymous email. I created a new account under a pseudonym and sent detailed financial evidence, complete with screenshots, transaction IDs, and Clarissa's linked accounts, to 3 major newspapers. I didn't embellish a thing, just the facts. Then I waited. It took 2 weeks, 2 long, agonizing weeks of pretending nothing had changed while sitting across from him in meetings, listening to his self-congratulatory speeches, smiling through gritted teeth as he called me his indispensable partner. And then it happened. A notification pinged on my phone early one morning. Breaking news, prominent philanthropist under investigation for misuse of charity funds. I opened it. There he was, Adrian Vale's perfect face plastered across the headline, surrounded by words like embezzlement, fraud, and personal misconduct. The article included excerpts from the very documents I'd sent. Clarissa's name was right there, too. Within hours, reporters swarmed the foundation. Donors demanded answers. The board held an emergency meeting, and Adrian, still trying to play innocent, blamed accounting discrepancies. But the evidence was too clear, too precise. By the end of the week, his reputation was in ruins. He resigned to focus on personal matters, and Clarissa disappeared from the public eye. The last I heard, she'd left the country. Meanwhile, the board approached me. Cautiously, like someone testing thin ice. They asked if I'd be willing to assume leadership temporarily. I accepted, on one condition: complete financial transparency moving forward. I rebuilt everything from the ground up. The donors who left eventually returned when they saw our books were clean, our programs thriving. And I learned something in the process, that integrity isn't just about doing the right thing when it's easy. It's about holding your ground when the world tells you to stay quiet. Months later, I saw Adrian again. It was at a charity gala. Ironic, really. He wasn't a guest. He was a speaker for another organization that hadn't yet caught up to his fall from grace. He spotted me across the room, his expression flickering between shock and shame. He approached, glass in hand, trying for charm. "Ilara, you look radiant." "Adrian," I said evenly, "how's Clarissa?" He hesitated. "She's not in the picture anymore. Neither's your funding." He winced. "You think you won, don't you?" I smiled faintly. "No, I think the truth did." And then I walked away. That night, as I drove home under the city lights, I passed a billboard. The Haven Reach Foundation annual fundraiser, empowering survivors, rebuilding lives. It took me a moment to realize what I was feeling. It wasn't pride. It was peace. Because for once, I didn't have to fight to be heard. The truth spoke loud enough on its own, and in the quiet hum of my car, I thought about how betrayal begins with trust, but justice, it begins with belief. Belief that even the smallest voice, when armed with truth, can bring down an empire built on lies.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.